Excellent. Thank you, Simon. David, the chair, for hosting us. Thank you for everyone who's kind of made the effort to come in on what has been a very kind of cold evening, and welcome to everyone who's kind of at home, kind of dialing in and kind of watching us. What we're going to be talking about today, as it says up on the screen, we want to be able to help you level up your kind of project management career. I think one of the parts that's most important on this slide is just to draw your attention to that we do, I'm still in the way of it, that's unhelpful, isn't it? Is that it is a interactive session. So we'll run through the format and the structure we want to go through today, but if it's just going to be the three of us talking for the next hour or so, we do like the sound of our own voices, but we'd really like your feedback, your questions as we go through. We will have a structured approach to that, but as Simon said, if people online, it sounds like coming from in this room, if you've got any questions in the application you want to ask, please dive in. We'd much rather have your feedback and your interaction as we go through. So let's see if the tech works. Excellent. So, after any project, we need to have an objective. What is it? Take a seat, whatever works. What is the objective? Well, ultimately, again, break it down to its component parts. We want to be able to help you with your job search. I imagine some of you are looking for a new job now or looking for a new job in the future. As recruiters, that's what we do. So we're very keen to give you the insight on how that kind of all works. It may be that you're not looking for a job now, but you really want to be able to understand where your career can go. And you'll have some views on that. You'll have done some research. You'll have seen people in organisations that you've worked with. But clearly, we see lots of CVs. We speak to lots of candidates. We speak to lots of hiring managers and lots of people in different organisations. So we're here to show you what we've seen. Again, it's our view. Other views are kind of available. And then finally, the bit which I always think is kind of most interesting is lifting the veil on how to work with recruiters and what really happens behind the scenes. Because I'm sure you've got some suspicions. I can explain what really happens and how to kind of leverage that information to your advantage. So hopefully that's all interesting and what you're expecting. No one's left, so I'll stick with it so far. The format for today, so we'll do our intro, so you get to know who we all are in a second, but this is what we'll be covering. I'll be doing a piece on the bigger picture, essentially giving you an insight into what we're seeing in the wider market. And also, essentially a bit more of an overview about Michael Page, and then we'll break it down to these two sections on the screen: in-demand skills, career path, and job search. And at the end of each of those, so we don't have to too much of us talking non-stop, and while it's still current in your brains and your ears, what you've been hearing, we'll break out into kind of a Q&A, and please throw any questions at us. We'll answer what we can. If we can't, we're happy to take it away, either offline or networking if you're in the room, or offline. Separately, if you're kind of dialing in from afar. I guess, who are we? Our happy faces. So my name is James Barrett, top left. So I'm the Managing Director of Michael Page's Technology and Transformation business for the UK. I've been in recruitment for 18 years. I'm older than I look. And essentially my passion, personally, is around the kind of the transformation in the project space. The reason that I ended up in recruitment all those years ago is that I had some potentially misguided aspirations that I wanted to be a management consultant. I applied for a job through Michael Page to be one. They said, you haven't got the skills or the experience. How about recruitment? I thought I'd give it 6 months, and 17 and a half months later than that, kind of here I am. So I'm really passionate about this space. I'm really interested in how organisations work. And also, changing jobs can be the most stressful part, or one of the most stressful things that you go through, and being able to help people move through that genuinely is very, very rewarding. So that's me. Thanks. Danny boy?
Yeah, my name's Dan Jones. I've been in recruitment for 21 years, both in the UK, and the last 16 years actually been in Australia, in Sydney. The last 16 of those 21 have been technology transformation, both in a contract and permanent perspective.
Yes, hello. So I'm one of the directors, operating directors for Michael Page, just focusing on the permanent hires for technology and transformation. I think I'm around 18 years, same as James, so you're going to be a bit older, but anyway. But I span across Asia and UK, so I 15 years in the Asia market, and then back to the UK 2 years ago. So obviously, I can give you a perspective on a global level as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that's us. We've got probably 50, 60 years of recruitment experience. So we made lots of mistakes along the way. We've got lots to learn. So hopefully we can share with you what we've seen over the last few decades. So as Simon said, Michael Page, who are we? We're a big player. I thought it'd be helpful just to give you a bit of insight into the kind of the scope and scale of the organisation, and then how that can hopefully benefit you. So currently about 7,000 kind of consultants globally. We're in 36 countries. We were started by a couple of failed accountants over a kind of laundrette in 1976 who thought they could do recruitment better than the recruitment consultants they were dealing with, and then over almost 50 years, isn't it, we've grown up. Objectively, globally ranked the #1 kind of permanent recruiter by one of our industry bodies, the SIA. We didn't pay for that award, which was good to actually get it kind of objectively, and we've had it for, I think, the last 2 or 3 years. I think rather than just saying, look, we're big and we think that we're pretty good at what we do, I think the bit that's most important out of that is that scope and scale, those years of experience, give us huge amounts of kind of data points in terms of the organisations we're speaking to, the data that we kind of are able to collect and gain insight on that we then give back to organisations and to kind of candidates. And I'll be giving you a bit of insight into that today, because I think that's always kind of interesting. In the UK, you see it's about 10% of the business, there's 700 of us in total. And in the UK, we work with, in a year, some years, about 5,000 customers, placing about 16,000 people into jobs. So we are, essentially placing people on a regular basis. The bit which I do feel strongly about, I've been with the business for 18 years, is that we really do believe in our purpose. And I know that, lots of recruitment consultants, they have a bad rep, and understandably so, because it can be a very transactional industry. There's low barriers to entry. Anybody can do it. You don't certify in it. Our purpose for a long time has been to change lives. And genuinely, when you place somebody into a role and you give them that job, whether it's a contract role or a position, and they've been struggling to find the right role, it is one of the most rewarding things that you can do. And in recruitment, you generally do get the insight how organisations work and how people work, because ultimately organisations need to share with you what their strategy is, what they're hiring, what's going on, the politics, the dynamics, all that in an organisation. Genuinely, it's fascinating. Well, to me as a geek, it's kind of fascinating. And in terms of helping people when they're changing jobs, it is an emotional, it's a difficult time, and being able to help someone through that, genuinely, is very rewarding. And that's the purpose we live by. And at the bottom, just can you see there, these are our kind of values. So, what you can see, I don't know if you can see them at the bottom down here, but it's earn trust, grow connections, and make a difference. And that is because we are a people-based business, we are a people-powered business. And if you don't work in this way, you can't build long-term relationships. If you do it for the short term, transactionally, your relationship gets burnt very quickly. And as a large organisation, we can't afford that. So hopefully it gives you some reassurance we're trying to do it right. We'll make mistakes, but our intention is to go and get it right. Michael Page Technology in the UK, just to give you a bit of framing of it, about 50 consultants work in our business. We specialise in 4 key areas. Cloud, data, leadership and transformation. And essentially how we look to operate is each of those operate as a kind of local boutique, but then we've got the scale and be able to give you the insight from a global organisation. So that's Michael Page. If you knew that already, sorry if you didn't, that gives you a bit of insight as to who you're talking to today. So with that scope and scale, let me talk about some of the information that we're seeing, what we've seen. So each year, we do a talent trend survey, goes out to about 50,000 people took part of it last year, about 30 across 37 different markets. So it's the biggest talent trends survey that goes on in the recruitment world. Some of the main call-outs that that we've kind of seen, I don't know if these will be surprising to you or not, and I welcome your feedback as we kind of go through. Salaries, money's still important, not a massive surprise to kind of everybody, I think. Flexibility. Clearly, we were fully flexible by default, by enforced due to the pandemic, and then we've seen that change in ebb and flow, and I'll come on to what we've seen in technology versus kind of the wider kind of industry. From a DE&I perspective, inclusivity rightly has become more and more important. We've now got 5 generations in the workforce. So we've got people at the start of their career, people at the latter of their career, and ultimately, organisations are struggling on how they engage and inspire and attract and retain people all through those different kind of generations. And then finally, we couldn't do a presentation about technology without talking about AI, which, as we know, goes everything from the evangelical kind of approach to it to essentially the business case to get anything signed off, let's just put AI into the business case and it might kind of work. But we're seeing it permeate through all organisations, and some of it has real value, some of it's too early to tell, but clearly everyone's talking about it, and we'll touch on what we're kind of seeing from our side. So those are the main kind of call-outs. What else have we got here? So this is I don't know if you can read at the top, but what are candidates looking for? This is the feedback from the UK data. I think we're about 5,000 respondents in the UK, so fairly good sample. This is kind of non-technology on the left-hand side, on the right is technology. I genuinely thought that there would be a larger spike on the technology side on some of these kind of motivators of what people are looking for. You can see that over half people say work-life balance is really important. I thought for technology that would be higher because ultimately I think technology, it's been more flexible. There's been more remote working before the pandemic, more digitally native organisations, remote setup first organisations. Also, I thought there'd be a higher views on kind of the flexibility and probably on the salary side as well. But apart from actually probably a 10% variable, if you look at it in terms of flexibility being the driver, it's pretty similar. But those are the main drivers which we are seeing. Salary has probably come down quite a lot as inflate in terms of a driver compared to it was when inflation was kind of flying through the roof, and we saw a huge inflation in wages as much as we did in terms of the cost of fuel and everything else that we were spending money on. And then I wanted to kind of bring to life what we're seeing between candidates' expectations and through and for our kind of customers or the employers as well. And what you can see here is that there's a big challenge in that people, neither side's happy with the salary. Candidates aren't happy with the salaries that they're being offered, both in the jobs that they've got and what's available in the market, and clients can't afford to pay people what they want. So you can see there's a real kind of tension in the market that both sides, if you want to call it sides, sounds a bit combative, doesn't it? But in terms of both sides in regards to what they're looking for. But up here on the kind of on the left, so I keep standing in the way a bit, over half people admit to say that they're looking for a job in the next 6 months, I think it is, or the next 6 months. I think it's probably higher than that, if I'm honest. I think there might be a little bit of, like when you leave the polls, who did you vote for? So we've got lots of people who are looking for jobs, but ultimately there's a big tension around what they're going to be able to get, is the flexibility available, and also job insecurity. It's like, do I look for a job now? It's the best the devil I know the organisation that I'm with, rather than leaving, going to another organisation in what is a pretty risky market because the economy, as we know, is not ideal. Am I going to be the first in, last out when I go? So it's a difficult market to find the right job at the moment. And we understand that, and the data kind of supports that. So what's it like for actually for project managers? So I did a bit of kind of top line analysis. This is not exhaustive, so please don't ask for my kind of research studies, but I've kept it quite top line. So if you're on LinkedIn, using some keywords, so the methodology is flawed, but it's probably helpful just as an indicator. It's about 140,000 or over 140,000 project managers on LinkedIn at the moment, of which 30,000 are open to work. Again, that's where they're openly stating on their side that they are open to work. That's not necessarily the green banner, that's people that can put it discreetly behind the scenes as well. So as you can see, there's a lot of people open to work. In terms of the jobs, or jobs advertised, there's 22,500, just over 22,500. So if those figures were accurate, and all the jobs fitted perfectly, and they're all exactly every linear that every project manager could do every single job, we've got a lot of people who aren't going to be getting necessarily the jobs that they want at the same time. But the reality is, again, that the number of job seekers I think is far higher, because I don't think everyone would be disclosing it. And as I said, my logic or my approach is limitations to it. And also those jobs have got duplicates in them, because more than one agency might be advertising a job that's out there. So actually, the job volume is probably lower, real jobs, and also the actual candidates looking is higher. And that doesn't take into consideration, I say, the relevancy of it. In fact, you might be an SAP project manager, are you going to go and do an infrastructure project and so forth? So it is a challenging market. I'm sure those of you that are looking for a job at the moment already understand that. But I thought maybe it's reassuring to know that you are not alone and that it is challenging for everyone, and the data kind of supports it. The other challenge, just to give you kind of some expectation kind of management, is that when the economy is, challenging in itself, the kind of recruitment market, the job search market is suppressed. What do I mean by that? Ultimately, there's not a lot of jobs out there, or not the right kind of jobs. It also means that the buying behaviour, the hiring behaviour of organisations is risk adverse. And we know when people are risk adverse, they try to make linear decisions. So what does that mean if I give you up I love a Venn diagram, a simple approach to it. If I am a hiring manager and I am looking to hire a job, then I'm going to look, because I don't want to make the mishire, but also I know there's probably quite a few candidates available. I'm going to take quite a linear approach to it. I'm going to look for a candidate who has the exact technology, and what they're saying it's a technology project, the exact technology we're looking for, that overlaps with that function, who has that industry experience. So if I'm a retailer who's essentially doing a SAP finance kind of rollout, But I'm going to look for someone who's worked in retail, who's got kind of SAP FICO and is well entrenched working with finance functions, managing finance directors. And therefore, that can be a challenge, you know, if you don't have those kind of exact skills, because ultimately line managers aren't necessarily taking an element of risk in terms of looking at people with adjacent skills, which is a challenge, but again, an insight into the market. So I guess my final piece of advice on this is ultimately recruitment is a project. Okay, so you need to have an objective in terms of what you want to achieve, but you really need to make sure that you understand the requirements, both the requirements of the employers, the kind of jobs that you're looking for, but also your requirements as an individual in terms of what you're willing to compromise and what you're not, and assessing where you are as, I guess, as an asset, as a potential hire in those organisations. Hopefully, that's not too depressing, but it is, I guess, a reality around where the market sits. I'll now be joined by Carly doing this piece to talk about some in-demand. Shall I drive?
You drive. I think that's
Thank
good.
you.
Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Right, Carly,
So,
you better go
let's
there.
swap. Yes, thank you. So it leads me really nicely, actually, onto just talking about some key skills and really interesting facts here. First, before we go off and speak about the key skills, can I have a show of hands who feels like, obviously in the AI market at the moment, the demanding AI market, who feels that technical skills are more in demand than your human skills, your human element? Just a raise of hands?
Who thinks
This is
technical? Who thinks technical? Okay.
Okay.
And then let's go human, just to make sure if anyone's on the side. Human.
Oh, one.
Okay. Someone put their hand up both
Three.
times. There's no cheating. Cheating. Yeah, I don't know what's happened online.
Yeah.
We'll see. Well, what's the answer? Oh, we put it up.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, definitely not complete. Technically wise, it's definitely not that all clients are looking for that technical piece. Human skills is such an important piece, and I'll go into that as well. After some research, we found that with the job adverts across Europe, nearly 3 times increase in the listings of those human skills and the soft skills. And we'll go into that into more detail. Thank you, James. So look, just picking a couple of points, and what we've done is we've put them into 3 buckets here. So can you see our eyes? It's on your lap. So we've really put it into 3 buckets. And first of all, I'll talk about more of the human-centric and the leadership skills. And as you can see from here, these are kind of the main things that when we are talking to clients as a recruitment partner, we really need to be understanding our candidates' motivations so that we can match this, because it's so important these days, particularly in that project management world. So things like, going into a project and having that stakeholder influence internally and externally and driving that forward, and ensuring that you go in with a head of a change management head on you, so you know that you can go in and you can make decisions easily, and you can be a real problem solver, and you can go to the project with solutions. Human-centric, softer side, that's that word, human-centric, so it's more about how agile you are on this project. As you know, as project managers, you need that flexibility, so you need that adaptability. For me, cross-collaboration is key, and that's something that with our clients has been something that they really want to see, and they want to see examples of this when they're looking at different profiles. Obviously, you've got your problem solving and just coming towards that with something that you can come in and you can drive these projects as a contributor. With the technical still,
Shall I talk about that?
Yeah, please, James.
Thank you. So, agile. We're agile. So, technical skills here, we're not talking about, I guess, hard technical skills. Well, I wanted to kind of show some differentiation from leadership in the kind of human-centric side. Talking about agile here, obviously, agile, as we know, been on job specs and jobs for a long time, and I don't want to go into a whole debate today around what is agile, what isn't, but I think the bit I would give you feedback on from what we see as recruiters and intermediaries is that one organisation or even one line manager's perception of what is working in an agile environment versus what a candidate is can be 2 very different things. And you get the far extreme where it's almost like a cult, and you get others where organisations are just putting it on their job spec because essentially they think they'll attract the right kind of people. Our job in the middle is to challenge the stakeholder and go to the line manager, what's your perception of Agile? What's the maturity of this organisation? What do you think it is? Us to be able to kind of translate that into our own mind and then go and interview candidates and find candidates that match. So essentially it's a matching exercise, but just because someone has got Agile on their CV with an Agile project, an organisation says we want Agile people, those two things can be very, very disparate, and our job is to go and try and cut through that. Applicable AI, I made that expression up, so please don't kind of judge me. I don't think it exists anywhere else. For me, at the moment, project management, it's not a case of are you working on an AI-led project, but I think like you've got a talk coming up on December the 12th, plug that. But more around what tools are you using, you know, in terms of how you use Trello. I think it's Butler and Trello, you've got Asana, you've got a few different other kind of co-pilot-esque kind of tools in there, where it's more about productivity than creativity at this stage, let's be honest. How are you going to automate those tools? And if you've already worked in an environment where you've done that, or off your own back, you've been able to work through different kind of proprietary software that can work, that's relevant, that's kind of interesting. Data analysis, again, broad term, means lots of different things to lots of different people. If I come back to Carla's earlier point around leadership skills, decision making, you know, we all know the kind of the buzz slogan, data-driven decision making. Well, what is it that you need to be able to do? You need to be able to use Python to do things. Well, probably not, you know, but ultimately, if you can write some scripts to be able to cut through some areas, great. If you are able to build things in Power BI, which means that when you come to kind of influence a stakeholder with how to, you know, with your business case, how to make things forward, move things forward, your status, then your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your comprehension of data analysis, your ability to use it effectively, but in a pragmatic style, I think that is something we're seeing a lot more on. And then final, digital literacy, again, broad term, what do I mean? I'll put collaboration on here in this one. What tools are you using digitally to be able to bring people together, whether that's within technology or, you know, the more challenging stakeholders, often the business stakeholders you're trying to get around the table to be able to work in an effective way. And with all the channels that we have now, I don't know what it's like by you, but in our office, it's WhatsApp, it's Teams, it's email, it's probably carrier pigeon. Luckily, we're not using Slack or anything else just because I think it would overwhelm us. But, you know, what is the right way to communicate in an effective way? Because we know that there is clutter and we are overloaded. So, essentially, these are skills we see in addition to can you run a good project effectively, you know, good methodology, relevant methodology. Do you have the tech skills, the functional skills, the process skills to go on? These are kind of, I guess, the value add that we're seeing a lot of customers, common customers, employers are looking for, especially when you get to that interview stage. Not necessarily on the CV, but when they get to interview stage. And so, you know, I think what most people would want if I was sat in your seats, in your shoes, is like, well, what should I be developing? What should I be focusing on to give myself that best chance of success? That's a fair question. That's what we all want, right? We want to be successful. The reality is that it's really disparate in that different, taking the Agile example, different organisations have a different interpretation as to what they want from these skills and how they want to apply it. And so it's not that necessarily we can say, absolutely go after this skill. It's more being aware of, when you reflect back on your CV and what you've done, your track record of your projects, think about what examples you've got, because these could well pop up in a competency-based interview. We'll come on to job searching later, but how essentially can you demonstrate that you've got this experience? And yes, there might be courses, and we'll talk about that shortly. But the reality is, if you have not applied this skill, then it is less relevant. It's like a degree. I mean, what's my degree in? Business management and marketing and in an international environment. I thought I was going to leave university and go and work for Procter & Gamble in China. I work in recruitment. So, you know, my degree didn't really have too much kind of credence. It's about what I then applied, and also I didn't apply very well in recruitment. The only kind of, I think, exception to that, again, in the Agile world, I don't want to get into the SAFE debate, but if an organisation is investing heavily in a certain methodology, like SAFE, or if in the data analysis space, they're really big on Power BI, and you're looking at customers that you want to work with, employees you want to work with, then that is a worthwhile investment because it's giving you a greater chance of success. But again, the fact of the matter is, if you haven't applied it, you're not going to be as competitive as other candidates on that shortlist who are going to the job who have applied it day to day. Hopefully that makes sense. Am I doing this bit? That's me as well?
Yeah.
As well. Good,
Yeah.
excellent. Cool. Well, I've left those up on the side for reference because, you know, in a challenging market, you as a project manager, aspiring project manager, must maximise the opportunity to really demonstrate those linear skills, those filling the requirements of that job spec in the first instance. That's got to be your primary kind of objective, what you're looking for. So let me bring that to life for you with a worked example. So let's say one of my clients is a manufacturing client, they've just bought another organisation, there is a project to kind of merge those kind of finance functions. You might have all of these in abundance. You might be an absolute ninja level at decision making, whatever that might actually look like. But the fact of the matter again is, what are we going to look first for as a recruiter, as an intermediary? And to be frank, what is the client going to be looking for first? So examples, what's your functional experience? You know, have you worked deeply in the finance functions? Have you worked on the relevant kind of technology stack? Do you have that industry exposure so you can deal with the stakeholders, you get the language, you understand the kind of dynamics? And then the project content, complexity and kind of organisation environment. If you can't demonstrate these on your CV first, then being really open with you, these are probably more going to get picked up at interview. So it's great to understand these, okay? But you've got to make sure you maximise the opportunity in terms of how you position yourself on your CV, you interview, the jobs that you apply for to get that first. That's got to be your kind of your primary spotlight and what you're looking to achieve. Am I just me too?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We changed the running order, as you can imagine. It's really slick. We do this all the time. We're really, really professional. So we did get asked, what certifications should we take? Now we are agnostic. We are not, we are not kind of aligned to any kind of training body or kind of certification kind of provider. And the fact is, there's too many to list. And back to my earlier point, each employer might be looking for different things. Each role might hold different things. Different line managers have their biases. You all have the bias about the certification which you took or you went through, or whether you liked it or not. You probably gravitate to being pro or against it. So my advice in this situation is more kind of principle and process kind of based, which hopefully will make sense because it does to us. But if I was working out, I want to invest in myself. Maybe I'm not working at the moment. Maybe I just feel like personal development is a key thing that I'm kind of lacking, and I want to tie that clearly to my job search rather than having a cerebral interest in something. What I would do, my approach would be, first of all, look at the target employers that you are looking for. Look at the organisations that you work for, whether you go on kind of LinkedIn, whether you can find something on their website, in the public domain, speaking to people who kind of work there, maybe in the industry, and work back from that. What is it? What are the certifications that a lot of the people in the function that you want to work in already have? Okay? And then I would break that down, just because of the way my brain works, into those different kind of buckets which we spoke about earlier to help me kind of map back and kind of go, right, I can organise my thinking there. I know what they've got. The bit that I think that's really important, once you've actually kind of done that mapping from the adverts and the line managers and everything else, is just take a moment to reflect. When you're looking for a job and you're not working or not in the job you're happy with, you'll be driven to kind of make decisions you think are going to change the world or change the environment very quickly. There's not necessarily quick fixes, unfortunately. But so do take time to reflect and go, does that skill, that certification really align with what I want to do? Or am I looking for a quick fix? Because you want to do it for the right kind of reasons. And once you've identified, go, actually, look, I am really motivated to do certifications. Yes, the organisations in the target market I want to work in have got them. Then go and research the providers and get feedback from people who've already got those kind of certifications, because there's a lot out there and a lot of them, I think, frankly, do overlap. And the thing is, I think it's really important at the end of it is that those certifications aren't necessarily going to get you the job, but what they are going to do is show that you've got that kind of ambition, that commitment and that desire to improve yourself. And I think that's something that can make you stand out against the people that haven't actually taken that kind of opportunity. So I'm sorry I haven't got a magic wand to say these 3 certifications are going to get you a massive pay rise and walk into a new job tomorrow, but this would be my principled approach to how to do it. It's my personal one. We can discuss it, agree, kind of disagree, but that's how I'd be looking at it if I was in this situation. Obviously I've said at the bottom, my last point, personal development is very important, but applying to relevant roles and showing that you are awesome. You get a bit motivational, pick me up on a cold night. In our home, it's more important that you kind of put that across. So, questions for Carly and I on any of that?
Well, I've got a general question. I'm not sure how relevant I think to this, but from my own experience over a few years, I've found that technical knowledge for a senior project manager is not so important.
Yeah.
The important thing is that you've got a man who does know, and you trust him and understand. And I'm just wondering how you approach that with some of these organisations. Say, oh, he must be an expert in AI and all this sort of thing.
Absolutely. So it's a really good question, so thank you. If I give you a bit of insight into our world, then I'll answer the question. I think its context is important. So we work with a range of organisations, and we will have very different relationships. So from our perspective, the positive end of the scale, we are a true partner. We get to meet the line manager, we get to understand them, we meet the team, we get to understand their culture, where they're going, the business strategy. With those organisations, we're a trusted advisor, so we have influence, okay? At the other end of the scale, it's purely transactional. We might be one of 10 agencies, they send a job out to a web portal, we don't get any influence, we've got to find CVs in a certain amount of time and send them in. So to answer your question then directly, example one, where I'm a trusted advisor, I can say to the line manager, look, you want all these things. The reality is, I know people that succeed in your business have these kind of skills, this kind of persona, this is where they'll add to your kind of culture. David would be a great example. Meet him, I'll put my brand and my reputation on this. Yes, he hasn't got X, Y, and Z that you might be looking for. Meet him, you'll love him. And then ultimately, that's my influence to do it. And then we do that, and we do that regularly with organisations where we have that trust. If I go and do it with the other end, I put your CV into where it's not matched, we won't even get past it. And actually, sometimes the clients will then not trust our judgment because they haven't even bothered or be interested in our opinion. So it really comes down to level of influence.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. And large organisations often more. Sorry. Question.
I was just going to maybe add on to that question. What are you seeing more of since the pandemic? Are you seeing more of the one end of the scale where it's transactional?
Yeah.
Or are you seeing still the range within the last, say,
In terms of our relationship with the end client.
yeah, your relationship and the types of clients that are more maybe
Yes.
transactional?
Yeah.
Have you seen that change? Or some of the larger, where you did have that trust, are they moving more towards a transactional because
It's a really good question. The challenge, one of the things that really probably gave our industry a worse name and also didn't help candidates, clients, or us as intermediaries, was as we came out of lockdown, that kind of digital boom when everyone was trying to go remote and get online and go direct to consumer, it was just a feeding frenzy, and everything went really transactional. Clients went really transactional because they were just desperate to find people, so they were just giving their jobs to any kind of intermediary. So the relationships where you might have had a strong tie diminished. Candidates, understandably, were very keen to get new jobs. Inflation was really challenging, so essentially, getting a salary to be able to pay your mortgage or kind of preempt your mortgage kind of going up was key. And then recruiters, unfortunately, in the middle, I would say, and we were guilty of this as well, I could see it happening, we became transactional because there wasn't the engagement there, so we got caught up in it. So then, when it's then kind of corrected, which it did last year in the UK, I would say, unfortunately, it's gone more transactional, or it stayed transactional. So where you have a good personal relationship, that hasn't gone. But to give you an idea, if I try and ring a CIO that I have a good relationship, maybe I've placed them previously and I've worked with them for years, it still can take me about 4 or 5 phone calls to be able to get to them because people don't take phone calls anymore. We block up our diaries. It's crazy, isn't it, in terms of how much we take on. And so even where we've had a good relationship, even if the intent is not to be transactional, you've seen it. So, and we're genuinely really trying to fight against it. A lot of our consultants don't like meeting people in person. I mean, that was the best part of the job. But we've even had to incentivize them to go out and meet some of their customers. It's like, can you please go out and meet them in person? It's like, get out the office. It's like, no, we'd rather sit on the screens and tap some buttons. So yeah, it's the human behavior. I don't think we're unique in that. I hope we're not unique in that. But yeah, human behavior, we're trying to fight against that transactional nature because it doesn't help us, doesn't help you as a candidate, it doesn't help the end client, but it's easy, and therefore, human nature, we like consumerism, isn't it?
Dave, there's a few questions from online audience. Violetta, did you want to talk to us with your question?
Yes. Hi. Hello. Can you hear me okay to start off with?
Very, very well. Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. So I have a question which is, I guess, well, quite particular about my situation. So I used to work as a project manager some time ago, and then due to pandemic, well, there were no more projects for me to work on. So I was put on furlough, and then I came back to the same company where I was working as a project manager, but in a different role. So I came back as a translator because, as a matter of fact, I speak 8 languages. So that is quite handy, obviously, if you need to do. But I I loved being a project manager, and obviously I realize all the developments in in artificial intelligence and the impact it may have on all of us. But the question, I guess, that I want to ask is this. I'm not really looking to change job at the moment, right? I'm a translator. I learned some tech skills as well. The company I'm working for is fantastic. I'm very happy there. I know the market is difficult, but in the long term, if I would like to, keeping project management at the back of my mind, right? If at some point, for whatever reason, I have to change my job and I have to look for a new job, change the employer, right? And actually go and apply for project manager roles. Is there anything that I can do right now, being a translator, to keep in touch, apart from obviously events like that, apart from, reading stuff on the internet? Can I do some courses? How can I stay in touch with project management so that, I'm ready if need be in the future, I will have higher chances of transitioning back into a project manager role, hopefully using all my languages as well. So does that make sense?
It does make sense, and thanks for sticking for English because I only speak one language. I don't want to. We have got a section on this later on, so I'll keep it kind of top level if that's okay, rather than taking Dan's thunder.
Thank you.
I think if I was in your shoes, very impressive shoes, what would I be looking to do? I'd be
Thank you so much.
in anything that you could do that keeps you working on things that are adjacent to project management in your current job. So if there's any exposure, any kind of value add or side projects that you might be able to be seconded onto or get that exposure, just trying to keep your toe in on project management, I think would be a good thing. Come back to the advice just a moment ago. I know it's difficult because you're talking about maybes and ifs and buts, but it's almost around what kind of project manager were you? What kind of project manager do you expect to be? Look at what's adjacent to what you are doing now, and then I would be looking again at those certifications, at those courses. There's loads of kind of free learning courses out there as well, and obviously what you're doing today in terms of coming to great events like the BCS is a key part to it. So keep networking, work back from what you think, what certifications or particular areas, whether it's technology, business, language-based environment. Just kind of keep working through those steps of intimacy. I would say around projects. I'm looking to the fan like you're up there. Into where was I? So in terms of keeping them close to it through those kind of steps of separation around. Can I keep working on project management certifications? Can I get exposure to it? But most importantly, what kind of project manager do you expect to be in 2, 3, 4 years' time? What's of interest? And do the certifications in that. If it's a case of you want to be in a certain tech stack or a certain business process, those are the bits that I'd be working on. But it's very difficult if you don't know what your end game is to preempt how you get there, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And so with regards to those free courses, will you be touching on this later on? Or is there any way of finding out?
Yeah, well, we don't, because we're not tied to any, we don't tend to promote them because we don't want to, we want to be seen as independent on it. But
of course.
On a free situation, we're happy to have a conversation offline or online, as it may be, at a later date. But we wouldn't recommend anybody. I can tell you where to look. Absolutely keen to help.
Okay. Well, I still appreciate the guidance. Thank you very much. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Additional point in relation to your answer there, in terms of trying to take on other things around the job of translating or whatever it is. It is proving that you can multitask. And that's one of the key attributes of good project management. So a good selling point when you come back into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and actually, as a matter of fact, I have one job, which is my main job, which I mentioned to you, and I have my side business where actually I'm a sole trader, and I have various translation projects. So I see your point. Yeah, absolutely. It's a very, very valid point. Thank you.
We have an interesting challenge from Jelly here. I don't know if you want to explain your precise circumstances a bit more. PMO professional in the engineering business and would like to move to banking, wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
And I'm assuming that's kind of more mechanical and industrial engineering rather than software engineering. I don't know. It's hard. It is difficult. And I think the challenge from a recruitment perspective or a recruiter perspective is that our customers, our organisation employers, they pay us to find the people who can do the job from day one. So using a recruiter to move a significant step from industry can be really, really challenging, and especially where financial services, where the barriers to entry can be very, very high. You know, getting into financial services, if you haven't got that experience, historically, it's very difficult. It's where I started, you know, my career. So a recruiter is unlikely, not impossible, but a recruiter is unlikely to be able to help you move into an industry which has high barriers to entry, like financial services has. Therefore, my recommendation always is through your network. So if you can find others that have already moved into that organisation or into that kind of environment, that would be the path to success. And also, as we spoke about previously, getting any exposure you can to financial services, whether that's through study, whether that's through kind of certifications, whether that's through networking. But fundamentally, we are paid a fee to find the ideal candidate for that organisation. And therefore, we are not going to command a fee if someone hasn't got that experience. And also, the organisation is going to be far more flexible to bring someone in if they are saving the cost of a recruiter, where they might be able to spend that money on training up an individual, like Jelly was the name, sorry. That might be, you know, if they're going to save a percentage, a fee, then they can spend that money on a training budget to be able to bring people in. But in this market, where it comes back to my earlier point of it being around linear hiring, because people are risk adverse, it will be, I'm sorry to say, challenging, but trying to do it direct through networking and through people you know already is the best chance. If someone in your organisation already knows you, that reduces the risk.
I think one more, because we should move on, and then people who are waiting with a question maybe get a chance later. Yeah. Any difference between perspective for permanent employment versus contract employment in what you've been talking about?
I think in terms of the question back is, well, in terms of the market or in terms of the kind of the job search? If we qualify the question.
Probably not. It certainly doesn't.
No. So I think it's harder to develop new skills as a contractor unless you can essentially move into a contract which is then going to give you those skills, and that is a chicken and egg scenario. Again, as a contractor, can you take some flexibility where maybe in terms of the working environment, maybe in terms of your rate, you take a contract which might be paying slightly less, you've got some flexibility, but ultimately gives you the exposure to the skills that you want. That would be the question. I guess the other part is taking the certifications in between contracts. But again, you come back to that challenge of, have you actually applied it? Great, you've got the certification, but you applied it in the real world. In terms of the market, the market for contractors has been, for finding jobs, has probably been the most challenging we've seen it since COVID, if that was actually the question or part of the question. Yeah, the last year, the market for contractors has been really, really tough, more tough than for permanent. So lots of great candidates are really struggling to find a job in the contractor market at the moment, which is really tough to see.
So I think we should let you move on. My apologies to those of you who had other questions.
Yeah, because Carly swaps. Yeah, sorry, mate. More of me, I'm afraid. Dan's chomping at the bit.
Ready to go.
Are we okay for time? And we've done it to kind of whiz through a bit.
Well, you've got about 40 minutes to the networking time.
Excellent. Okay, so career path of a project manager. I don't think that's a real Swiss Army knife. Maybe I'll be getting it for Christmas from my son.
That's what the client asked.
I think that is what the client asked for. Yeah. So I think that it's a blessing and a curse being a project manager. I mean, I'm not one, but you tell me. In that you probably can turn your hand to any project. In reality, the principles you could absolutely do most projects, whether it's at home, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in financial services, to an extent, you could pick it up. You've got the principles, you've got the gravitas, if you've got those, extra skills that we spoke about kind of leadership and human-centric, that's great. I think the challenge is, though, if you come across too much of the generalist, if you're too much of a Swiss Army knife, well, I've got a couple of Swiss Army knives that have been bought them over the years. They tend to end at the back of the drawer, because ultimately, when the client or when someone has a use for something, they're looking for kind of specifics. And I think that's one of the things that came on earlier in the previous kind of session. We want to kind of make sure that we're giving you the best opportunity about how to develop your career, and it is trying to understand what the end objective is and what your strengths are now and what your strengths will be in the future. If you keep it as too generally, I think actually in the job search and career development, it will limit you at some point. And that's open to interpretation. There's different views. Just saying it from a recruiter perspective, we tend to, because of the way the market is set up, trying to develop people down, set kind of routes is where we tend to go. So as I said earlier, it's about 140,000 project managers on LinkedIn. Did a bit of research again. Don't test me too much on the kind of research approach, but quick search, about 12.8%, not about 12.8% of CIOs, IT directors, or heads of IT in the UK come from a project management background. They have it somewhere in their CV. Might have been an internship, might have been the main part of that. But you can see that obviously that is one of the kind of key routes that people can develop into. Interestingly, 5.2% of UK CEOs had a project management experience, in their background. That could be any type of project management. Could be them doing their home renovations. But it shows that there are project management. You've got a good platform in terms of where you go. All these happy people's kind of smiling about. I think the big decision that you all have to take as a project manager is, are you going to go down that people leadership route, or are you going to stay an individual contributor? And what route do you want to take? And are you going to stay in permanent employment, or as your career progresses, is it more lucrative to give you more variety once you've got all the skills to be able to go and take yourself out as an independent kind of contractor out there? Those are decisions that we see lots of project managers making at various stages kind of through their career. Excuse me for this infographic, I did it myself, so it's not particularly great. But I kind of worked through a bit of kind of logic around what do we see as the most common kind of routes, and I'll go through them each. I mean, I think there's many surprises in here, but I thought it'd be helpful to kind of, when I work back through the kind of leaders that we speak about and the project managers where they've gone, this is kind of the main kind of grouping. So what's probably the most obvious one is that you stay in delivery all the way through up to kind of program director and kind of heads of projects. Potentially you move away from kind of pure play delivery around into more kind of change management, and yes, semantics about when one starts and when one kind of finishes, but that's another kind of big route or end we see. It may be then actually a bit like those kind of IT directors and CIOs, the 12.8% I think it was. People kind of progress up into kind of heading functions, usually business facing functions from a technology perspective. So in old money, head of applications, COO, kind of CIO, or actually maybe you're more technical as a project manager, and you move up through those kind of people leadership into kind of leveraging your domain expertise. Maybe you've worked a lot in cyber, you naturally kind of move into kind of management, leadership, then you're a CISO. It may be that you're in consulting, or you step out into consulting if you want to go and take on that life, and then the route up is obviously into the parts of being a partner. Conversation about that at the time. Or maybe you've made the step across this more digital world, more agile world into product. And then essentially moving up through customer experience, different kind of product management, obviously different skill set, I would say, to kind of project management, although lots of transferables. So that's a kind of a destination we see. And these bottom two, I think, are interesting kind of obviously left field ones, but I thought worth kind of surfacing to you. Seeing people kind of taking that kind of project management experience and usually building up a certain kind of subject matter expertise that they've maybe fallen into, and maybe project management isn't the long-term destination for them, but taking it through into, can they educate others, can they support others, can they give something back, whether that's in education, training, or kind of thought leadership. TED talks like this one today. And then project managers, by definition, you're used to solving problems, you're used to doing things under pressure, you're used to spotting opportunities. That what makes you a good and effective project manager. Not a surprise then that we see lots of people project management then kind of take that experience into something that's more entrepreneurial, maybe as a founder, maybe kind of running their own businesses, maybe their side hustles, as I think Brian left them give us the example earlier. So look, they're not exclusive, there's lots of other routes outside of that, but I was trying to kind of put them into fairly common buckets. They are quite general, but those are the kind of routes which we see. So how would you kind of look to develop your career? Again, keeping it fairly kind of top level. And you can see there's a bit of a theme here, but you won't get where you're going if you don't know where you want to kind of get to. And yes, there'll be opportunity along the way, but if you're at the moment a bit of a crossroads in terms of what you want to achieve and where you want to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, where pension ages will be by that point. It's about kind of going, well, what can I see now? Where do I want to kind of get to? All those kind of define those long-term goals with you, your family, what's important to the people that you trust. but also taking the time to do a bit of a self-SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses that you've had in 360s and appraisal that you need to develop? What are the opportunities for you in terms of where your skills can take you? Where's the market going? Maybe your skills, need to be revitalized. Maybe the tech stack you're working on is going in a different direction. What do you need to do to be able to keep moving forward, those stepping stones, to achieve that kind of end goal? And get objective feedback. By definition, we can't be objective about ourselves. So was that a question? No, just put something. So, getting that kind of, whether you've got a mentor, whether you've got a coach, get that feedback from people that you trust, because otherwise you could be ploughing a furrow and you don't know whether you're going in the right direction. You need to get that feedback from other people. You need to be brave. You need to be brave and ask that feedback. You won't always necessarily agree with it, but ultimately get that feedback, get it from people that you do put a believability weighting on, that you can then consolidate and look through trends. And I would say mentors are absolutely great for that. And then regularly reflect and react. The market is always changing, your skills are changing, your life circumstances are always changing. Everyone's got a plan until it, it's the Mike Tyson expression, probably topical from his recent fight. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, so it's a bit violent. But ultimately, your plans are going to change. You will have surprises, so take the time to reflect. It's not a problem to keep changing the route to get to your end kind of destination. Life takes over. Life's interesting. Life is hard. Life is full of surprises. So that's why I say goal and reality check. And then building from that, you can build that portfolio of hard and soft skills to achieve your goal, being aware of it. Being aware is the first step to understand how you can develop yourself, fill those gaps, build on what your kind of interests are, invest in the training and certificates which are relevant to where you want to get to and take that feedback, but leave your comfort zone. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, right? So you've got to take those steps. You only grow when you're uncomfortable, genuinely. And then finally, like you're doing today, network and strategic positioning, a bit like the Jerry, I think it was, who wants to get into kind of financial services from engineering. You've got to identify the opportunities where you can get in front of those right people to be able to learn and or to shine. Get those mentors or coaches from those industries that can help you. It's not going to be a quick fix, unfortunately. Speak and contribute to industry events. And finally, again, leave your comfort zone again. Also leaving your comfort zone. For those of you that have ever been involved in any kind of coaching, I mean, this is really, really basic, and I'm not a certified or qualified coach, but this is the approach that most the basic level of coaching. Reality check in terms of where you are. You get other people to give you that feedback. Consider the options, and then choose a way forward. You stick to it, and you test and learn, test and learn. So that'd be my advice. How you grow your career from a principal level. That was quicker than I thought. Any questions? Stunned silence.
Anybody online?
Answered it all, JB.
Yeah.
Last question?
Yeah, actually, can I ask another question? Is that okay?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you so much. What do you think about importance of technology degree these days? When it comes to increased chances of being employed, of a higher salary. Does it really make sense to get a degree in technology if one is serious about being successful in that field, or it doesn't really matter? It's better to get experience on the job and just keep progressing like that. What really matters actually?
Well, look, it's an opinion, and I'm not saying it's necessarily the right one, but come back to the earlier point, applying it is the most important thing. If you don't have the chance to actually apply something because you haven't got it yet, then I look at come back to that earlier point around the cost of it and the relevance of it, because degrees are very, very expensive these days, aren't they? It's a case of, is it going to be a general IT degree? Okay, is it more to give you that interest? And yes, it will show a commitment and it will show personal development, but is it going to get you a job next to someone who's already got the skills or different experience? My personal opinion, and it is not Michael Page's one opinion, is probably to take the route of what's the area that's most interesting to you within technology, and look at the kind of certifications or maybe the free or low cost options first to kind of test it, rather than committing to a 3 year degree. Would be my view. If you're doing say more advanced masters or otherwise, again, it's a big commitment, and you've got to make sure you're really wedded to that. Want to stick with it long term, and you might not see the return in the short term. So
absolutely, yeah, that's what I thought actually. So thank you for confirming my thoughts. Thanks.
So, in my opinion, so yeah, I'm open to others. I'm not saying I'm right on that. I'm just saying from a recruiter.
Sure.
I also
Sure, of course. Thank you.
depends on the stage where you are in your career as well. so that if you are, you have more experience, then a lot of organisations will look at that as a huge advantage, regardless whether
Okay.
you do it or not. So, that's-
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I had a similar situation where a client has said to me that he does want a particular degree, and this was a product manager role with a UX background. And when I did display, and I knew the client well, and when I did speak to them about, there is a variety of options here with candidates, in particular CVs, but I do have one that doesn't have that background, but the work experience and the culture fit for your organisation is perfect. Probably more so than what you're looking at in terms of your technical and your degree level. He rejected twice, then he interviewed, and the candidate's now offered. So it's just something where I think as recruitment partners as well, where we know our client, as James said earlier, so well, that's something that we can really educate the client.
Okay.
Yeah, and as soon as obviously that candidate was in front of the client, then he could show what he could do.
Yeah. That's really interesting to know, actually, because I studied in Poland. I got my master's in linguistics in Poland, and in Poland, master's degrees for free. So the only regret I have about my education is that I didn't do masters in technology. I could have done another masters, and now I'm in the UK, and obviously it's not for free. So as you said, it's a huge commitment, financial commitment and time commitment. So it's really great to know your opinion on that. So I really appreciate you advising on that. It's well noted, and I will bear it well in mind. Thank you.
David online is just saying you could also consider an online degree such as the Oxford University Said courses.
Ah, okay, great to know. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I will look into it.
Good. You're up.
One question?
Sorry.
All right.
It was maybe just to hop back to a point you alluded to earlier. People now are having what are termed squiggly careers.
Yes.
So you don't come in doing the traditional route.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, say, post-pandemic again, are you seeing your clients across the board more open to that? Are we people that have pivoted, people that haven't come from a traditional background?
Yeah.
Are you seeing more of a take-up of that, or because the market is quite compressed at the moment, that the traditional route and, well, we can get everything on this list, therefore let's get that.
That's where it's bounced
Can
back.
you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And your I guess your perception, your concern is correct. It was more, I think squiggly careers are what we're going to see more of. And I'll come to a different point around kind of gaps in CV has changed for the positive, but we've seen it snap back to the I guess the negative in the recent kind of months, because it's a buyer's market, and line managers think they can keep waiting to find the ideal person. The bit which I think is a positive, which is I think directly linked to your question, is when I started recruitment, if someone had a gap in their CV for a year, clients really didn't like it at all. And if someone changed jobs less than almost every 3 years, they would have a concern about it. And I think one of the positives that has come out of the weird and wonderful few years that we've had and are still having, is that people are more understanding that life takes you in different kind of directions, whether you choose to have a gap in your CV, whether you choose to do something different, or actually something happens to you in life. I think people, and for the benefit, for the good, organisations understand that far better. But back to your point, if it's adjacent skill sets rather than linear, that's kind of disappeared in the last few months. I think it will come back. But it's market driven, it's elastic to the market. It's a good question. Thank you. You're up.
I'm up. I'm just going to have a glass of water, which is here. Oh. There's the right button here.
I'll just push the cursor on the laptop.
Okay. Quite interesting. A lot of the questions are quite related to my segment here, which is about job search strategy. We are going to save the best till last, and that's not from a egotistical personal perspective, but I do think it is a really interesting and important segment, especially in the light of the current climate that we're in with the last 12 to 18 months. The job market on a global basis within technology and transformation has been really challenging. So it's really, really important to put your best foot forward and position yourself in the most positive manner to uncover every stone or turn every stone over to make sure that you are doing everything possible to land your dream job. So what I'm going to do is just go over a few high-level strategies that we feel you should take or consider when looking for a job. And we personally feel you should do them all if possible. We shouldn't solely pick one out. I think it's a concurrent strategy across all different ones. The first one is working with a specialist and reputable agency like Michael Page. Not biased. And what I must say again, that is to supplement your job search. It's not to solely rely on an agent. I would never in 21 years tell anyone just to register with me. I would always offer other avenues, which I'm doing now, to make sure the job search is full. The reason how we would work at Michael Page, we're very open and transparent, and if we feel we can't help you, we will tell you, and that happens a lot, to be quite honest. If we can help you, I think the number one tip I would give you would be to meet your consultant face to face. Because we've talked throughout the evening that the human-centered skills now, especially in transformation and project management, are really, really important. And you can't get that from a CV. So stakeholder management, conflict resolution, problem management, leadership, all this you can't really unpick if you just look at someone's resume. So if you're coming to meet a consultant, it gives you an opportunity to sell yourself as a person. And like we said before, our job, a lot of people will think we just sit and wait, bookings coming in and clients giving us jobs. They certainly don't in this market. Our job is to take your profile and take you to market and to really be strategic. Now, that's hard at the moment because, like I said, there are customers don't use agencies for all jobs, and there's a lot of customers out there, so we don't deal with them all. But our approach is that we try to be really specialist, and it lends itself to what we've been talking about tonight about the linear hiring. You know, there are a lot of candidates available. You've seen in the stats, there aren't that many jobs. Going back to COVID, when we came out of the pandemic, it was the other way around. There was loads of jobs and not as many candidates. So people didn't have to hire in a linear fashion. You didn't have to tick all the boxes. Now, unfortunately, you do. It's a buyer's market. So, you know, we will also look at your CV and we'll have a sit-down face-to-face meeting and really build a relationship with you. And I think James said earlier, we might not get you that next job, but it's about creating a lasting relationship that may go 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and it might that we never place you. But we network and we build a relationship. It might be that in 10 years' time you come to us and say, we need to hire a BA. You know, you've given me a really good service, but that's the aim of how we would like to operate. And again, it's providing advice. It's giving you honest feedback. Now, feedback is absolutely key. We don't always get feedback, and it's really, really hard. And it must be quite soul destroying if you don't use an agency, which again, you should be still applying for jobs. Some jobs get 500 to 1,000 resumes in a company, so you just don't get feedback. And if you're applying for all these jobs and not getting feedback, it is soul destroying. And the reason why a lot of people don't get feedback is because there's so many candidates on the market. And as James has said throughout, clients can afford to be really picky. They can afford to have every single box ticked. So they're looking for industry, they're looking for technology, they're looking for function, okay? And you know, we sat down, you could say to me, look, Dan, I can do that job. I've done 15 years of project management. And I'll probably say, you know what, I agree. But unfortunately, the shortlist is going to have 5 people who have got the industry, who have got the technology, and who have got the function. And that's a reflective of the market we're in at the moment. It won't be like that forever, but it is a buyer's market at the moment. And like James said, you know, they will come to us and they're paying a premium fee. So obviously, they are going to expect those boxes to be ticked. The next part is a tailored resume and approach. I think your resume should be a working document. You should change it for every single application. I'm not talking about fabricating things. I'm talking about checking the relevancy for the application, especially if you are not going through an agency. Okay, with an agency, we will sit down and we'll go through your resume in line with the job you're applying for. But if you're sending it blind, you need to it needs to be so relevant to the job application. A few tips I would recommend: keywords. You know, if a talent manager at a bank is getting 700 CVs through an application, which happens, they're going to do a keyword search. That's the reality. That's what will happen. So if they're looking for Azure cloud experience, for example, make sure that is in your CV throughout your CV. Don't just have it at the top. If you're looking for a technology that you've only used once, make sure it's in your CV. Okay? Another piece of advice, I would always put a bit of a suitability statements, I'd say, at the top of your resume under your personal details. 4 or 5 bullet points, not a cover letter, actually put it on your CV, really linking your experience to the job spec. So if they're asking for 15 years investment banking experience and you've got 20, don't assume they're going to count the years of experience. Put it on your CV. If you've worked in a cloud computing environment, put it in your CV. Be really, really specific and put your best foot forward to try and get yourself that job. Have some water, my voice is going again. The upskilling piece, staying relevant, realistic, we've talked quite a bit about that. We've talked about should you get certs and shouldn't you. My view is quite similar to the guys here. I think, especially in today's market, 9 out of 10 times, practical experience is going to trump educational or certs. I just think it is because clients, it's a buyer's market, they can be really specific. So how I would view it, if you have practical cloud experience running a cloud migration project using Azure, going to get an Azure certificate is really, really good, and that will absolutely elevate your profile. If you don't have cloud experience, but you want to get into cloud because it's a hot market, will a cert in cloud help you do that in today's market? Maybe not. It might put you ahead of other people, but if there's people with cloud experience, even if you've got every cert available, in this market they're going to be ahead of you, unfortunately. That's that. The next bit, the skills you should highlight, and it's quite self-explanatory, and I think James has talked about it in depth, leadership and conflict resolution, really, really important in transformation and projects. Project outcomes and lessons learned. No one ever runs a perfect project. No one does. There is no perfect project. There's always bumps in the road. So you've got to learn, you've got to be able to articulate what challenges you had and how you address them, and I think that's really, really important. And how you've strategically aligned to certain business units and stakeholder groups are highly prioritised. I think they are 3 really top level skills you need to highlight. This next is the most important and it's probably the most undervalued. The amount of people we represent that don't properly prepare for an interview, it's hard enough as it is to get an interview in today's job market. It's really, really tough. So you've got to absolutely put your best foot forward to try and absolutely nail that opportunity. Now, working with Michael Page, if we had an interview for you, we'd do a half-an-hour call before your interview and we'd go through everything you're going to be asked. We'd go through behavioural questions, okay? We'd give you advice on the previous interviews. We'd be able to do that. That's how we operate. If you're applying for a job direct, you're not going to have that. So it's on you. So all I can stress is prepare. And I don't just mean the top level stuff, which is really important. What does the company do? Looking at the news on Google, have they had any recent mergers and acquisitions? All that stuff, absolutely. But it's being able to articulate your experience really quickly, efficiently in an interview environment. So about your projects, what projects have you run? The scale of them. What's the complexity of your stakeholder group? Geography, time zones, business units, who have you managed? What conflict have you had to resolve? What projects have gone off track and you've brought them back on track? What milestones have you hit? You've really got to have this ready because people just assume they've got this CV, but if you're asked a question, you really need to be ready for that. So to prepare. Just another little glass of water. So researching and target the right companies. Now again, this market, it's hard because industry experience is really relevant because it's linear hiring going on. But there are industries that are quite busy. Manufacturing, healthcare, for example. So my advice would be if you have got experience in those industries, target them. Now that might be, you might have worked for a manufacturing company 10 years ago, but that's fine. Put it at the front of your CV, highlight it, put your best foot forward and approach those industries. Leverage your network and work on your personal brand, and it's really good to see so many people here now. There was like 2 people at the start and everyone's come in, which is really, really good, but also virtually as well. This is really, really important. James alluded to it before. In transformation and in projects, the amount of people that get jobs from referrals is huge. Not applying, not going from agencies, just working with previous people who moved on to a new project and say, I used to work with him, he'll come with me. It happens all the time. So make sure you constantly engage with people you've worked with, you attend as many events as possible. You've got a really strong personal brand on LinkedIn and you share content, you contribute to content, you join affiliations linked to your business, and you really push your personal brand, because that will get you places. Building and showcase your portfolio. We've talked about it throughout, but this is really, really important. You should be able to articulate your portfolio really efficiently, and it's literally, like we've talked about, it's the stakeholder group, it's timelines, it's scale from size, budget, multi-country, etc. Lessons learned, again, challenges, how you've learned and changed as a result, and testimonials. Ask for testimonials, ask for referrals. That's going to be really, really helpful as well. And the final bit, and it's not always easy. Like I said, there's times when we don't get feedback, but where you can get feedback, and try and be positive, because it is hard. There's a lot of people out there who are knocking on doors and they're not opening, but you just got to keep going and ask for advice and take feedback. I think.
Questions for you now, isn't it?
Questions for us, yes.
For us.
Yes.
Questions?
About 12 minutes.
Okay.
To, go.
My voice is going, so you might
Yeah,
have to.
I'll answer for you.
Thanks. So, just to let you know, I'm a contractor.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'm assuming that it's much better just to have or work with a small number of agencies and maintain the relationship with them rather than sort of go scattergun. Okay. Now, while just on the off chance that I'm not being contacted by any of these agencies, I'm assuming that obviously, therefore, the onus is on me to have a chat with them. How often? What's a good rate before regular contact becomes a bit sort of stalkery?
It's a good question, and I do contracting. I head up the contracting business. Okay, and how I would like to work, and this comes back to one of my first slides, is meet the contractor day one, and I would come up with expectations and an action plan on how we will work together. And as a relationship develops, which is what we want to do, we don't want it to be transactional. We want it to be a consultative partnership, right? You phone me every 2 weeks, I'm fine with that, because I've got a relationship with you, and you're not stalking me. But you probably know at that stage that you don't need to call me every 2 weeks, because when I've got a job, I'll give you a call. Coming back to your initial point as well, I do agree. I don't think it's a good look, and it's quite time consuming, and you get duplication if you literally apply with every agency. And we've had it, especially in a tough market. Your CV will be duplicated. It will turn up at the same place by multiple agencies. It's happened to me recently. So you want to control, because it doesn't look good for you or the agency. But again, just having a relationship and having an open communication should help that.
Thanks.
So, given the linear market we're in, and for those who want to do like career transformation, obviously there's high levels of barrier to entry. Are you seeing any entry level roles for PM, or is it better to go the business analyst route
Oh, thank you. Sorry, so just in terms of framing the question, so in terms of changing career or getting into the career, sorry.
Yeah. So I've got a tech sales background, engineering degree. I want to get into project management, transferable skills. Also, I feel like it's a great career path to go in. I'm finding it quite hard having that entry level role, basically. I don't think it's possible to find that at the moment.
It's a very tough market to get into. It's unlikely that a recruiter will help you get into that, because ultimately lower level roles, they don't tend to want to pay a fee for, and equally someone kind of transferring across. So I think the advice, it's not impossible, it does happen, but you're going to have to, as you probably are, working very hard at it and be open-minded. And yes, if you can get into almost an adjacent role, whether that is a trainee business analyst or something which is going to give you, maybe you can go in as a super user of a certain system, or some kind of entry-level sysadmin, which gives you some technology exposure because you've worked with sales systems, maybe you've worked with a CRM, maybe you're going to do a Salesforce admin kind of course. Get yourself in something there where actually you've got that, you can transfer it in to then go through support, BA, training, project management. I think that would be my kind of advice in terms of, you've got it right, looking at adjacent kind of paths in.
No, that makes sense.
Going back to your end goal of wanting to get into being an awesome PM, which I'm sure you will be.
And just to add again that the linear market, I don't want this all to be doom and gloom. That's today. Right? The thing is with recruitment, it's cyclical. It wasn't like this 2 years ago. It is today, but it is cyclical. So it will change again, and there will be more opportunities for it to not be as linear as it is at the moment. Hope so anyway,
We'll get
otherwise
better.
I won't have a job. Hope so.
I think another route in is through the PMO route.
Yeah. Project
I
support.
don't know whether that's easier
Project
or
support.
harder or what, you know?
I think anything that's support, we usually have lower barriers to entry, so whether
Yeah.
it's project support to go in, system support, super user training, those would be the routes, absolutely.
The natural would be like an admin, project consultant, PMO, and going into a BA. So if you can get into that lower level admin role, we'll support that. That is always a longer term route.
It's all about the industry experience, isn't it?
Sorry, I've got another question. It's maybe a bit off key. I'd like to get your opinion as recruiters for the term overqualified. When you get that from a client or you've had that feedback from a candidate, how do you manage that so that you can educate the client or the candidate?
I'll take this one. I'm cynical when people say that someone's kind of overqualified. I think it can mean a whole host of different things.
Exactly.
Some of them could be quite nefarious.
Yes.
So I think there is if we look at it as let's take it as genuine, intended genuinely, because I think anything else is probably dangerous and we're making assumptions around it. But if someone's saying overqualified, what they're concerned about usually is this person, this individual, this candidate, going to be bored in the job and therefore leave in a short period of time. They're worried about that individual's commitment to stay in the job because they think it is necessarily beneath them in terms of their level of experience. And the other part of it can be a threat. It can be a threat to others that are perceived that if you say you as an individual, you've got more experience than the job needs, you're coming, it may be that you're getting too close to the manager's level of experience or others in the team. So those can be the genuine reasons, whether they're fair or unfair. That could be a genuine reason why I think someone's overqualified. But, historically it could be down to age and other things, which are obviously against the law and people shouldn't be doing and they should be, pulled up on. But if it's genuine, it's usually there's some level of threat either to the tenure in the role, are you going to stick, or are you threatening the person that you're going to be working with, not implied, not threatening. Please don't do that. That answers the question.
Yeah, it does.
You need a good answer to the question from the manager.
Yeah, we challenge.
Yeah,
We'll get it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
people, human beings historically don't really like confrontation. The world might look differently now, and line management, and it's easier just to throw away something in terms of they weren't a team fit. You want someone better. And they don't want to give us them. It may be that someone interviewed really badly. It may be that they came across really, but no, they don't want to say that. They don't want to hurt feelings either because they're being kind about it, or maybe they're being lazy. There's a whole host of reasons why we don't give people feedback every day. You might still tip at a restaurant, you didn't have good service. You might not send a meal back. My wife will never let me send a meal back. I have to eat it. Even if it's raw chicken. No, I'm joking.
There's a question at the back. Did you? Yeah.
I'm a project manager, and I wanted to ask, I've got like a few comments around the subject. How do you as a recruiter deal with kind of salary negotiation if somebody really wants to punch a higher salary and they've already received an offer? What's your kind of advice on that?
So in the scenario that you want to go for the increase after you've been offered it, or just generally you maybe have a big step up, you're on X and you want to go X plus?
Like you've been offered a certain salary
Yeah.
and you want to kind of say, okay, no.
So our view is to be transparent all the way through. Money should never be an issue at the end of this is on a permanent, well, on day rate too, but on a permanent process. So for me, the way that I would always like to, at the start of the process, we're having a very frank and open conversation about what you're looking for and what you're genuinely, this is where we need to give you some feedback, your market value against other kind of candidates on there. You also need to tell me what you're looking for and be realistic. And if we're working in partnership, we'll be completely transparent. And then when we speak to the client, we know what their expectations are in terms of their salary kind of banding. We know where you stack up against the other candidates in the shortlist. You might see a range on there, it could be a 10 or 20k range. Just because there's a top range there, not talking about you specifically, but your experience might be, compared to the others, at the lower end, regardless of what you're on at the moment, it's value to that kind of organisation. When we get to the end of a process, we want to make sure that you are going to say yes. So if we think that your salary expectations are out of kilter either with your experience against the shortlist or what the client's willing to pay at any stage, because we check it through the interview process, when we get the offer, if they give us an offer that's too low for you, half the time we won't give it to you. We'll go to the client, we'll say, no, we're not putting that in front of them. We've been transparent all the way through, unless you can give me a reason as to why. And sometimes it's maybe they've realised that you've got a gap or something else. Sometimes they're trying to be cheap. But we won't give it to you. If we are and they say that's best and final, we'll say, well, put it in front of them. We don't think they're going to accept it. However, to play your scenario through, if you've told me you want X all the way through, and we've agreed that's what it is, and the company then offers X, then you say, I want more than that, then that looks like we've been disingenuous through the process. It either looks like we don't know what we're talking about, looks like you've been clear or transparent with what you're looking for. If you wanted X plus 10, X plus 20, then say it at the start and back yourself to do it. But don't get disappointed if you then don't get the job, because essentially you've priced yourself out. Our job is to get you as much as possible, genuinely, putting all niceties aside. Our fee is dependent on your first year's salary. So we're going to try and get you the most we can. But economics, we're not going to price you out, because then it's percentage of nothing. So it's about being transparent. If you come across as greedy at the end, people will be concerned, is he going to move the goalpost later on? Conscious of time.
Yeah. You've got a few more.
Yeah, did you want to go to your wrap-up
I was
slide?
just going to wash it up very, very quickly. But it's a good point. Be transparent. We want to get you the best, but if you try and move the goalposts afterwards, it doesn't look great as a candidate. Very briefly, so, I've heard it so far. Market is challenging and kind of risk adverse. Life is a project. Be glad to know, because you're project managers. That's good, right? Hopefully. But that's your personal development, your career development, your kind of job search. Make sure that you've got an objective you're going to. You're checking your requirements, you're testing, you're learning, you're reflecting. If you are being too generalist, or you're coming across as too generalist, that can be a challenge. My earlier point, Swiss Army knives can be left at the back of the drawer, so spotlight your strengths. You might have different strengths for different jobs, but make sure that you are highlighting them. It's a competitive market. We're not going to guarantee that we can find you a job. Our job is mainly built on failure. Even if we filled every job we've got, that's only one candidate who's getting each one of those jobs. And we can have 300-400 applications for a project management job pretty regularly. So, ultimately, if we can't help you, we will tell you. If a consultant isn't telling you that, that's an issue. They need to give you that feedback at the start and hopefully give you advice that you go and find a job through a competitor of ours or directly. But you remember that advice because we were open and transparent, and you value that because we want to build long-term relationships. I've been working this for 18 years. I still talk to people that I placed in my first year of their job. We'll give you that advice. Again, emphasise that point, pay it forward to pay it back. And come back to what Michael Page is all about. Our purpose is to change lives, and we do want to be with you for the long term, and we want to learn, and we want to see you succeed. Even if you don't use us, we want to make sure, selfishly, that when you're at a dinner party, at a wedding, and people are talking about jobs, you say, Michael Page gave me some good advice. They're transparent, they're good, they're the good guys, good girls. That's what we want to be. And that's it on time. On time, on budget.
Yay.